So coming off the previous chapter, we found out that the Hero Association had Psychos in prison this whole time, and they were planning on selling her off to this Esper group called Tsukuyomi. And Fubuki came to the Hero Association in hopes of trying to stop this from happening. And as she was making her way down with Saitama to get to where Psychos is being held, we went into like two different flashbacks. So the first flashback was right after Garo was defeated. We saw that Fubuki had found where Psychos was hiding, and that brought us into a flashback of them apparently being classmates in high school. And that brings us to the beginning of this chapter, and we're essentially seeing Psychos' descent into madness, I suppose, where we see her being like really obsessive about this group that she's in with Fubuki called the Society for Supernatural Research. But going further, we see Psychos reading this book, trying to learn this new ability called the Third Eye. And she says, if I can manage to pull this off, I'll be able to predict the future just like the great prophet Shibawa. So that's a reveal right there, I guess, right? It's confirming, or kind of confirming, that Shibawa was an Esper. And like before I found this out, I didn't really think too much of Shibawa and her abilities. I thought she was just kind of unique in the fact that she could do that. But no, it turns out that she was an Esper who could utilize the Third Eye ability. I guess she was like the master of it because she did accurately predict the future. I mean, that was like her duty before she died. She would like foresee all of these great disasters that would happen and then let whoever needed to know, Hero Association, whoever before that, and then that's how they would be able to stop these disasters from happening until, she eventually saw the prophecy, the end of the world thing that started off the series, and she died from choking afterwards. And speaking of that, it turns out that Psychos pretty much saw the same thing that Shibawa saw, only much earlier than she did, because this was like years ago when she was in high school, and Shibawa only saw this prophecy like 2 months ago or something in like the current timeline of the story. Hey, also guys, if you like my One Punch Man content, please subscribe if you haven't already. It's fine if you don't want to, but if you just need a reminder, here you go. Thanks. But yeah, this is like the beginning of Psychos going crazy, essentially, because when she sees the vision, it's presented as just all of these lines and whatnot. Like, of course, we don't get to see this because this is like a big deal. Like, maybe we'll see what their visions were eventually, but it sends her off into like this crazy psychotic rant where she's basically saying that humans suck, more or less, and that there's no point in even taking over the world and like ruling them. The only thing left to do is just to essentially kill them all. And yeah, this is where she goes insane and starts telling this to everybody else, including the group, which we saw in the previous chapter. And this is more or less what caused Fubuki to seal off her powers. Not necessarily because she was going to kill everybody or had these crazy plans, but more so because, and keep in mind this is high school Fubuki, but Fubuki wanted to rule over everyone. And if Psychos were to kill everyone, then Fubuki would have no one to rule over. So she sealed off Psychos' powers in some unknown way. But yeah, this is the reasoning as to why. And I don't know how Psychos unsealed her powers. Either she did it through training or God did it for her. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Factor. Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved meals right to your doorstep. Factor now offers 34 meals per week and 36 add-on options like smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep me going no matter what I have going on. And what I have going on is a lot of videos, guys. I'm sure you've seen on the channel that I'm always uploading, and it can make things pretty hectic, especially trying to get meals in during the day. And Factor really helps me with that because they're simple and delicious, and all I have to do is just pop them in the microwave. It saves me from monotonous meal prep, or even worse, having to eat out all the time, which is super expensive. So far, I've tried 2 Factor meals. First being the tostada bake with Mexican cauliflower rice and sour cream, and this thing is fantastic. And the portion on this thing is awesome as well. Really enjoyed this one. And after that, I had the loaded bacon and spinach shredded chicken with roasted Brussels sprouts and ranch sour cream. Now this one right here is my favorite so far. This tasted so good. So guys, if you're looking for some awesome meals delivered right to your doorstep that's going to make your week so much easier, head to go.factor75.com/Zhoniin60 and use code Zhoniin60 to get 60% off of your first Factor box. Guys, that's such an incredible deal. 60% off of your first Factor box by just using code Zhoniin60. Thanks, guys. We're coming back to the end of Psychos taking on Fubuki, and Fubuki somehow defeats her here. And this is pretty impressive, of course, because Fubuki is, B-class rank 1, which is technically like A-class hero, but still, Psychos is designated as a dragon. And yes, Psychos came into the battle, weakened and fatigued or whatever, but still, Fubuki doing this is incredible. I mean, Fubuki was doing her stuff too, healing people and everything. And surprisingly, it's not being explained in the manga version how Fubuki is defeating Psychos. It is explained in the webcomic, so I don't think it's going to be retconned. I think how she's defeating Psychos here is going to be explained in like the next chapter or the next 2 chapters, because there is like a specific way that she's doing it, and it's like kind of integral to Fubuki as a character as well as like her power set. So I assume this will be explained a little later. But she asks Psychos like, what is it that you saw in the future? And after she knocks her out, she kind of like goes into her head. She's like, what exactly changed you? Is this the source of your madness? Something we'll find out when the future comes. And then suddenly like God appears above them, and Fubuki's definitely aware that something is going on right now. I mean, she's not aware that it's God, of course. So yeah, this definitely proves that obviously God is behind prophecy and everything, as we knew, and is able to like tap into the third eye or something. And it seems like if you're like a good, morally just person, the way that Shibawa was, you could possibly die from seeing the vision, because she choked on like a cough drop or something. But it's possible that God forced her to do that. I don't know. But it seems like if you're evil or be able to be manipulated into becoming evil the way that Psychos was, then he'll just make you his disciple essentially. Because this is all like God's plan. Like influence the person who's capable of orchestrating your plan. Like planting these thoughts into Psycho's head, so she eventually makes the Monster Association and eventually makes Orochi, because Orochi is prophesized to be placed on the altar to bring God back to the earth. It's all part of his plan, and it has to start somewhere, although I'm sure he's tried this many times. But we come back to Fubuki and Saitama finally making it down to where Psychos is being held, and they meet up with that Joker guy from the Tsukuyomi group. And she's like, this visitation's over. Everyone has to evacuate this room immediately. You guys added Psychos to the incarceration list. So now this information is accessible by any pro hero, meaning that my sister Tatsumaki is probably going to see it, and she's going to come here to finish her off. And what do you know? She does that immediately, and she like rips the ceiling off. And Saitama's like, I see the person behind the destruction of my house. This is important because this is kind of like Saitama's little mini quest right here, or what's been going on after he defeated Garo, trying to figure out like who destroyed his apartment. And technically it was Tatsumaki, when she was fighting Sairochi. But don't you think that it probably would have been destroyed sooner or later in that massive battle that was going on? But still, somebody has to take the blame, I suppose, and it's going to be Tatsumaki essentially, right? So just keep that in mind, that Saitama is kind of upset about this. So Tatsumaki busts in, and she's like, why is she still alive? And she tries to like throw rocks on her, but the Joker guy and Fubuki kind of like shield Psychos from her. And then Tatsumaki just sends the Joker guy into the wall easily. And it seems like Fubuki and Tatsumaki are about to fight or something. Like Fubuki's protecting Psychos from Tatsumaki trying to crush her. And she's like, what are you trying to pull, Fubuki? Did you get brainwashed or something? No, turns out that this is actually a ruse orchestrated by Tatsumaki, and that they're actually not at odds here. Kind of just putting on a performance, because we're going into another flashback. And this is seemingly happening sometime before they meet up here. And Tatsumaki is telling Fubuki that like, yeah, Tsukuyomi, the group that the Joker guy's a part of. She says that they're the psychic research organization that locked me up and used me as a guinea pig. And those guys are after Psychos. So this is pretty cool. This is what we speculated about in the previous video, that the Tsukuyomi group is probably the same group that had Tatsumaki when she was a kid and running experiments on her and stuff like that, and Blast eventually saved her from that place. But he also had a cube in his hand, and I was like, those guys probably, were doing cube research as well, and probably know more or less what God is, or at least that God is out there. And turns out, yeah, it's true. This guy is coming from the very same group. And Tatsumaki wants to work together with Fubuki here to protect Psychos from being taken by them. And she says that she has her reasons, but I think it's because, first of all, she doesn't want that group to get Psychos, because that's not good, but also because I think she knows that Psychos is being manipulated by God, or at least by someone. I mean, she kind of figured this out when she was fighting Sairochi, but maybe more or less came to that conclusion afterwards, especially when she was encountered by God himself impersonating as Blast. Although she was kind of like half awake when that happened, I'm pretty sure she realizes what's going on here. So she's trying to give Psychos a redemption possibly, while also, not having the bad guys take her and then manipulate her and use her to their benefit. But then the Joker guy gets up and like destroys the security camera and knocks out the Hero Association executives. And Tatsumaki's like, I guess there's a tiny bit of progress in the development of artificial psychics after all. So that's interesting. Turns out that Tsukuyomi group is making artificial psychics, or espers. This is something that we didn't really know before, but it makes sense considering all the research that they're doing. And I don't know exactly how they're doing it. I'm sure there's some kind of operation you could do, but it's possible that they're also using the cube to make this happen as well, because they were kind of using the cube to make monsters or something. something, so they could probably make espers from it too. If not, it's kind of just figuring out how the esper brain is wired and then them trying to replicate that on somebody else. But this guy's pretty powerful despite not being like a naturally born esper. I mean, it's even stated by Fubuki. So I also said that this guy's probably dragon level, and it seems like that's probably the case. But Saitama's like, you know, hey, I came here to say a few words to you for destroying my place, but it doesn't seem like you're sorry at all about it. So remember, Saitama not happy about this. And Fubuki's like, I'm lucky you came along, Saitama. I see great strength in you. You've been playing dumb about it, but I think you're the one who defeated Garo. And Saitama's like, no, I honestly don't remember. And this is, of course, because his future self fused with his present self, and I don't know, the memories of everything that happened between him and Garo in space and a little bit before that kind of just got wiped, along with the power increase that he got. So he genuinely doesn't know that he defeated Garo, which is good and convenient for the story going forward. But Fubuki's like, Garo was someone who had reached a peak and ascended. Having taken him down, you're probably somebody who has ascended as well. It's interesting how ascended is being used here. This could be a way to indicate somebody who has gone past the limiter, removed it in Saitama's case, broken it in Garo's case, or have just been given like power beyond the limiter from God possibly. I don't know that for sure, but it seems to be the implication here. But the Joker guy like clashes with Tatsumaki psychically or something, and the ground splits underneath Saitama and he just falls beneath. And he lands inside of this monster containment cage with all like these demon levels. And I'm assuming that Metal Knight put these monsters here for like, you know, research and development, you know, making his robots as strong as they are and whatnot. But there's probably also a nefarious element to this that Metal Knight doesn't condone, or maybe isn't even really necessarily aware of, which I think we'll get into in the next couple chapters. But Saitama's down here, and obviously the stakes aren't very high. I mean, even if they were all like dragon levels, the stakes would still be non-existent. We know that Saitama could just snap his fingers and then they'll all explode, but there is more to this. But that's where the chapter ends, and let me know what you thought about this chapter in the comments, guys. If you liked the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.